This is the job I'm doing today on my Hunter 31 sailboat. This roll furling line right here, running rigging, is old, it's worn, I need to replace it. And this is a cruising design roll furling. It's a very old design, probably from the 80s. To change this line, I've taken it apart. But right here you can see some jammer teeth, and that's where this knot was in. So to take this apart, I had to take off this screw, I had to take off that screw, I had to take off that screw, and down here I had to take off 4 bolts with nuts. It's a little hard to see. Maybe you can see right there. There's 2 on one side, 2 on the other. And that was to open up these jaws enough so that I could get the figure 8 knot out through that hole. So now the job is to take the new line, feed it through, put the figure 8 knot through it, get it in between that area, and then put it all back together. But just to be on the safe side, I went ahead and took this line I had right here for a jib running rigging, and I just went ahead and tied it to here at the bottom of the roll furling just to hold that up, just in case I didn't want it to fall down. I talked to the people at Stingray Boat Works, and they said it should be fine. It should stay. Shouldn't be a problem. But I was still concerned, so I went ahead and did that. Now what I did, I'm over the water right now, so to catch the screws and the nuts and the bolts as they came off, I certainly didn't want them to go into the water. I put these rags down to kind of catch it, and that was definitely a good idea. Definitely a good idea. So the next step is to take off this old rope and put on the new rope. And then I'll put it all back together, and we should have good running rigging for when we need to pull the sail back into the roll furling. This is the new rope that I'm going to be using for my roll furling running rigging. And that's going to be replacing that old white line with the green stripes, contrasting with the blue. That way it's easy to identify. If I have crew on board and I need to identify a specific rope, it's nice to go color-coded. All right, here I am. I've installed the new rope right here. And what I did was, when I took off the old rope, this was the rope I was planning on using. But I took the old rope and I laid it out, and I put the new rope next to it, and I found out I was short. And one thing I definitely did want to have was my running rigging for the roll furling to be short. If anything, I wanted it to be longer. It was 64 feet, the original, and so I went up to West Marine and picked up this one, and I knew I wanted to go longer, so I ended up going with 80 feet. And to get this, it was kind of tough to do. But I did a figure 8, or didn't do a figure 8 because it was just too much. This opens up. Here's the roll furling opened up. And you have these guides here, so it's not going to open up all the way. Now, I've put this knot on. They do recommend a figure 8, and I think I've got it open up wide enough now to where I can put a figure 8 on it. So I'm going to redo this knot and do a figure 8 instead. All right, I've gone ahead and done a figure 8 knot, and now I'm going to try to put it down inside the roll furling drum. And with the figure 8, it's just better than what was there before. Let's see if we can show back what we had before. This was the old rope right here, and you can see that the knot that they'd put on that. Under the directions for the cruising design, they do recommend a figure 8. So that is what I'm going to try to do here, is figure 8. And like I said, I'm going to have to use the screwdriver to just pry this carefully apart so that I can get that figure 8 in there. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but I've been able to get it inside the drum, and this is the jammer teeth there and there. It's a little hard to see. Those are the jammer teeth for it, and that's what'll be holding it in place, and that'll be in there. So now I have to put this back together and so forth. So that's what I'm going to do right now. The first step was to put this bolt with screw on. I'm doing them one at a time, and that way I don't lose anything. If you can look in there, you can see how the rope is going into the roll furling through the jammer teeth. So the next thing I'm going to do is turn this around, and I'm going to do the other side, which is going to be a little harder to see. And then I'm going to attach this screw and then this screw. And then I'll do this one and this one and this one and the one over there. And then I'll do the 4 in the middle of the drum. Okay, one part of this cruising design roll furling that was a little bit surprising was I had to get to the screw here. Now, to get to that screw, you have to take off this piece here because it's hidden. So you have to take this screw off, and when you do that, you can pull this off. Very important, get that off. Then you can get to this piece right here. So that's important. So now I'm in the process of putting it back together. So I have to make sure I put it back on. So it's pretty straightforward. I'm just going to slide this piece back in. You can see where the hole is going to match up. And then I'm going to put this screw right here, right there. And then I'll be able, the last thing I've got to do, I've already put the screws, I've already put in the nut and the bolt here, or the screw and the nut, same thing right here, it's a little hidden. I've put in this screw, I've put in that screw, I've put in this screw, and I've put in that screw. So, like I said, I'm putting this piece back on right here. Secure it with the screw. Then I've got my final 2 bolts on either side of the roll furling drum. And I'll be complete. Brand new rope. Beautiful. And here's the finished job. Down. You can see I've gone ahead and put a couple wraps in it, but I have plenty of, I have longer line than I did before, so that allows me to have a couple wraps in there for strength and to reduce the pull on the roll furling drum. So it's all done. It's all pretty with new line. And took a little longer, as always, than I planned, but everything went smoothly. Didn't drop any screws, which is wonderful. All I can say is each screw, I didn't hold any screws up here. I immediately moved them and put them in a safe place. I didn't wait to have 2 or 3 screws. Each one I moved to a cup where I was holding each screw, and that way I didn't lose any of them. And same thing, when I put them back on, I put them on 1 screw at a time. I never brought more than 1 screw forward. Once again, here I am working right over top of the water. Lose a screw. It's a lot easier to go back to the cockpit and get 1 screw versus going to West Marine to get a replacement. And that's the project all completed. Very nice. On this Hunter 31 sailboat, windy days. Another angle, this is from the bow. You can see the rope disappearing into the drum assembly. And you can see the new rope running down the starboard side to the cockpit. So even though it's an old cruising design roll furler, Try to get a few more years out of it. Always make it the best it can be. Sometimes it's better than getting brand new. Save quite a bit of money, about 10% to get new running rigging rather than 10 times that for a whole new equipment. Once again, that way it doesn't go to waste. And this is on the Hunter 31 sailboat.